I was just about to take my first spoonful of soup when my mother-in-law, Zola Adiemi, suddenly tapped her wine glass. The sound made everyone stop talking. All 24 guests turned toward her. I smiled, thinking she was about to make a warm birthday toast or say something kind about the family gathering. Instead, she slowly stood up and pointed directly at me. My smile disappeared. "Let's stop pretending," she said loudly. "We all know why Abony married my son." The room became completely silent. For a second, I thought she was joking. I even gave a nervous laugh, waiting for her to smile and sit back down. But she didn't. Her face was serious. Then she started telling everyone that I had only married Musa because of his family's wealth. She talked about their businesses, their properties, and their successful name. She claimed I had planned everything from the beginning to secure an easy and comfortable life for myself. I felt every eye in the room move toward me. Some relatives looked down at their plates because they were uncomfortable. Others exchanged looks and small smiles as if they had already believed her story. My heart was pounding, but I couldn't find the words to defend myself. That was when I noticed something strange. An elderly lawyer was sitting beside Zola. Unlike everyone else, he didn't look surprised by her accusation. He didn't look embarrassed either. In fact, he looked calm, almost amused. He sat quietly in his chair with a small smile on his face, like he had been expecting this moment for a very long time. Then our eyes met. Without saying a word, he slowly pulled a sealed envelope closer to his plate. The movement was small, but it immediately caught my attention. I didn't know what was inside that envelope, but something about it made my stomach tighten. At that moment, I had no idea that before the night was over, the same woman accusing me in front of everyone would be desperately begging me not to open it. The truth was, I had never been the kind of woman Zola believed I was. I didn't grow up around wealth, luxury, or powerful people. I was raised in a small town where life was simple and sometimes difficult. My grandmother was the person who raised me, and together we spent long days selling handmade fabrics at local markets. We worked hard for every dollar we earned. There were no family businesses waiting for me, no inheritance, and no rich relatives ready to open doors for my future. When I first met Musa, I knew almost nothing about his family's wealth. He was kind, respectful, and easy to talk to. He listened when I spoke and treated me with a level of care I had never experienced before. I fell in love with the man he was, not the family name he carried. In fact, it was months before I fully understood how powerful and wealthy his family really was. But from the very beginning, Zola made it clear that she didn't approve of me. At first, her comments were small enough for others to ignore. She would look at my clothes and ask if I needed help choosing something more suitable for family events. She would ask questions about my hometown in a way that felt more like judgment than curiosity. Sometimes she would correct the way I spoke in front of others, smiling as if she was helping me while quietly embarrassing me. After Musa and I became engaged, things got worse. Every holiday felt like an examination. Every family dinner felt like an interview I could never pass. No matter what I did, it was never enough. If I stayed quiet, I was called distant. If I joined conversations, I was told I was trying too hard. It seemed like every move I made became another reason for criticism. Many times I wanted to walk away, but Musa always held my hand and asked me to be patient. He truly believed his mother would eventually see my heart and accept me as part of the family. "One day she'll finally see who you really are," he would tell me. I wanted to believe him. But instead of getting better, Zola's dislike for me only grew stronger with every passing year. For a long time, I thought Zola simply disliked me. I believed that if I stayed respectful, worked hard, and treated everyone kindly, things would eventually improve. But little by little, I started noticing things that didn't make sense. Family members who used to call me suddenly stopped reaching out. Relatives who once invited Musa and me to birthdays, anniversaries, and weekend gatherings no longer included us. At first, I thought people were just busy. Life gets complicated, and I didn't want to assume the worst. But then the strange comments began. One aunt asked me if I was enjoying all the money I had married into. A cousin joked about how easy life must be when someone else pays all the bills. Another relative asked if I planned to buy a bigger house soon. The comments were always delivered with a smile, but they felt uncomfortable because none of them were true. I had no idea where these assumptions were coming from. The most confusing part was that many of these people barely knew me. Some had only met me once or twice, yet they spoke as if they knew private details about my marriage and finances. The answer came by accident. One afternoon, during a family gathering, I stepped away to use the restroom. As I walked down the hallway, I heard two cousins talking in a nearby room. They didn't know I was there. One of them said, "If she already convinced Musa to change his will, who knows what she'll take next?" The other cousin nodded and repeated the story as if it were a fact. I froze. My heart started racing. What will? What were they talking about? That evening, I asked Musa directly. He looked completely confused. He told me he had never changed his will. In fact, there had never been any discussion about changing it at all. That was the moment everything became clear. Someone had created the story from nothing. Someone had told the family that I was manipulating Musa for money. Someone had planted the rumor and allowed it to spread from one person to another until people accepted it as truth. And deep down, I already knew who was behind it. The more I paid attention, the more pieces started fitting together. Every cold look, every missing invitation, every whispered conversation suddenly made sense. Then the invitation for the upcoming family dinner arrived. Everyone called it a celebration. But by then, I had realized something terrifying. This wasn't a celebration at all. Someone had spent months turning the family against me. And that dinner was never meant to welcome me. It was meant to destroy me. As the dinner continued, the atmosphere became heavier with every passing minute. Zola seemed completely confident. She stood at the head of the table like she was presenting a case in court, and one by one, she continued attacking me in front of everyone. Every sentence was designed to make me look greedy, dishonest, and untrustworthy. But what unsettled me most was not Zola. It was the lawyer sitting beside her. He barely spoke a word. While everyone else reacted to the accusations, he quietly sat in his chair with a small notebook in front of him. Every time Zola made a new claim, he calmly wrote something down. He never interrupted her. He never defended me. He never asked questions. He simply listened and took notes. The longer he stayed silent, the more uncomfortable I became. I couldn't understand why he looked so calm while my reputation was being torn apart in front of the entire family. Then Zola began presenting what she called proof. She placed documents on the table and showed them to the guests. There were bank transfer records, property documents, and papers connected to family investments. She pointed at different pages as if they clearly proved I had married Musa for his money. Several relatives nodded as they looked through the papers. Others whispered to each other. The mood in the room started changing. People who had been unsure before now seemed convinced. I looked around the table and felt my stomach drop. Even Musa appeared confused. He wasn't agreeing with his mother, but he clearly didn't understand what was happening. His eyes moved from the documents to me, searching for answers he didn't have. Meanwhile, the lawyer continued writing notes. Then I noticed something strange. The more accusations Zola made, the more relaxed he seemed. Every new document she revealed appeared to make him even more confident. A faint smile remained on his face the entire time. It was not the smile of a man watching someone win. It was the smile of a man watching someone make a terrible mistake. And somehow, I began to feel that every accusation Zola was making wasn't hurting me at all. It was helping someone else. The only person who didn't seem to realize it was Zola herself. The accusations continued for several more minutes. Zola stood proudly in front of the family, convinced that she had finally exposed me. Around the table, people were whispering to each other. Some looked disappointed in me. Others looked satisfied, as if they had expected this all along. I felt trapped, unable to understand how everything had spiraled so far out of control. Then, for the first time that evening, the lawyer spoke. His voice was calm and steady. "Mrs. Adeyemi, are you absolutely certain you'd like this discussion to continue?" The question seemed simple, but something about it made the room quiet again. Zola didn't hesitate. "Of course," she replied immediately. She looked completely confident. In her mind, she had already won. She believed the family was on her side, and she seemed eager to continue exposing what she claimed was the truth about me. The lawyer studied her face for a moment. Then he slowly nodded. "Very well," he said. He closed his notebook and folded his hands on the table. What he said next changed everything. I should clarify that I was not invited here by Mrs. Adeyemi. Several guests looked surprised. The lawyer continued. I am not attending this dinner as her guest. In fact, I am not here for this dinner at all. A confused silence spread through the room. I saw relatives exchange worried glances. Even Musa sat up straighter in his chair. The lawyer then explained that he was there because of legal instructions left behind by someone who had passed away 6 months earlier. The moment he said that, the atmosphere changed. Everyone knew exactly who he was talking about. Musa's grandfather. The family patriarch. The man everyone respected. The man whose opinions had guided the family for decades. The lawyer explained that before his death, the patriarch had given very specific instructions. Certain documents and information could only be revealed under special circumstances and only in front of witnesses. That was why he was there. Not because of Zola. Not because of me. Because he was carrying out the final wishes of a man who could no longer speak for himself. For the first time all evening, Zola's confidence cracked. The proud smile disappeared from her face. Her shoulders stiffened. Her eyes moved toward the sealed envelope sitting beside the lawyer. And suddenly, she looked worried. As if she already knew what might be inside. As if she had spent years hoping that day would never come. The woman who had controlled the entire room only minutes earlier now looked like the one person who no longer wanted the conversation to continue. The room remained silent as the lawyer slowly picked up the sealed envelope. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Every person at the table seemed focused on his hands. Even Zola, who had spent the entire evening attacking me, suddenly looked nervous. The lawyer carefully opened the envelope and removed a thick stack of papers. There wasn't just one letter inside. There were dozens. Some were old. Some were newer. All of them had been written by Musa's grandfather over many years. The lawyer explained that the family patriarch had developed a habit of documenting important events in his life. He wrote about family meetings, business decisions, private conversations, and personal observations. Whenever something important happened, he recorded it. Then the lawyer began reading. At first, the letters seemed ordinary. They described family gatherings, company matters, and different events that had taken place over the years. But as he continued, a clear pattern started to appear. Again and again, one name was mentioned. Mine. The lawyer read a letter written several years earlier. In it, the patriarch described a hospital visit after a difficult medical procedure. He wrote that many relatives had promised to come, but only one person actually showed up. Abney. The lawyer read another letter. It described his birthday celebration at a care facility. Many family members had sent gifts, cards, and messages, but only one person spent the afternoon sitting beside him, talking with him, and sharing a meal. Abney. Then came another letter. And another. And another. Each one revealed the same thing. During the final years of his life, when age and illness made him feel forgotten, I had continued showing up. Not because anyone asked me to. Not because I expected anything in return. I simply cared about him. The letters described hospital visits, holiday gatherings, and quiet afternoons when he felt lonely. While others were busy with business meetings, vacations, and personal schedules, I had made time for him. The room grew more uncomfortable with every page. Many of the people who had questioned my motives only minutes earlier now stared at the table. The truth was impossible to ignore. The family members who constantly talked about loyalty had rarely been there. The relatives who proudly claimed to love him often stayed away. But the woman they called a gold digger had been the person who showed up again and again. The final letter the lawyer read was written only months before the patriarch's death. In it, he wrote something that left the room completely silent. He wrote that kindness is revealed when nobody is watching, and that among everyone in the family, Abney was the person who had shown him the most genuine care. And he wanted everyone to know it. The lawyer placed the letters aside and slowly took out another set of documents. This time, the atmosphere in the room changed completely. Nobody spoke. Even Zola seemed unsure for the first time. The lawyer said nothing for a few seconds, as if giving everyone time to prepare for what was coming next. Then he began to speak again, this time holding financial records in his hands. These were not emotional letters anymore. These were bank documents, property transfers, company agreements, and legal papers. The kind of documents that could change everything in a family. As he went through them one by one, a shocking pattern started to appear. Over the past several years, large amounts of money and valuable assets had been moved within the family. Properties had changed ownership. Accounts had been accessed. Business shares had been quietly transferred. Everything looked legal on paper, but the timing and signatures told a different story. The lawyer explained that someone had been controlling these changes from behind the scenes. Someone had been guiding elderly family members to sign documents without fully understanding them. Someone had been using trust and family relationships to influence decisions that benefited only one person. The room grew colder with every sentence. And then he said the name. Zola Adeyemi. The same woman who had spent the entire evening calling me a gold digger. The same woman who had accused me of marrying into wealth for money. Now, the documents showed something completely different. It was not me who had been targeting the family's wealth. It was her. Each new page made the truth harder to deny. Relatives leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others whispered to each other, realizing they had unknowingly signed papers or agreed to decisions they never fully questioned. One by one, the people who had supported Zola began to change their expressions. Confusion turned into shock. Shock turned into silence. The room that had once been filled with judgment toward me was now filled with uncertainty toward her. Nobody defended her. Nobody spoke for her. Even those who had agreed with her earlier now avoided eye contact. The lawyer continued calmly, showing how assets had been moved step by step over time. Everything had been done carefully, quietly, and slowly enough that no one noticed until now. When he finally stopped speaking, there was no argument left in the room. No one knew what to believe anymore. The only thing everyone understood clearly was that the story they had been told was not the truth. And the person they had trusted the most was the one they should have questioned first. Musa sat completely still as the lawyer placed more documents in front of him. His hands were shaking slightly as he picked them up. At first, he did not want to look, but he forced himself to read. These were business records, old emails, and signed statements. Some were between family members, and some were directly linked to his late grandfather. The more he read, the more confused he became. The documents showed a side of the family he had never been told about. Important decisions had been made without his knowledge. Money had been moved, agreements had been signed, and conversations had taken place that were never shared with him. Then he saw something that made him stop breathing for a moment. There were records showing that his mother, Zola, had been involved in hiding key information from him for years. Not small things, but major family decisions. That affected their businesses and property. Musa slowly looked up, his eyes full of shock. He could not understand how so many things had been kept from him for so long. The lawyer quietly explained that Abani had actually stepped in many times without asking for credit. She had protected parts of the family business, stopped certain decisions from going wrong, and even helped correct mistakes that could have caused serious damage. But she never told anyone. She never used it to gain respect or praise. Musa turned toward Abani, his expression changing. For the first time, he saw her differently. Not as someone accused of using the family, but as someone who had quietly protected it. At the same time, the atmosphere around Zola was collapsing. The guests who had once supported her now avoided looking at her. The people who had nodded at her accusations earlier suddenly looked uncomfortable, as if they wanted to disappear from the room. One by one, her allies stopped speaking. Some quietly stepped back. Others pretended they had never taken her side at all. Zola stood alone in the same room where she had once felt powerful. Musa looked back at the documents again, then at his mother, unable to accept what he was seeing. For the first time in his life, he realized something painful and terrifying. Everything he believed about his family, his mother, and even his marriage had been built on half-truths and hidden lies. The room stayed silent after everything was revealed. No one knew what to say anymore. The lawyer slowly closed the documents and then looked at everyone sitting at the table. His voice was calm, but what he said next changed the entire atmosphere again. He explained that there was one final instruction left by Musa's grandfather. Before his death, he had written very clear directions that had to be followed in a situation like this. And according to those instructions, Ebony now had the right to speak freely in front of the entire family. She could say everything, every lie that had been told about her, every secret that had been hidden, every betrayal that had been planned behind her back. The lawyer said this was the moment the patriarch had prepared for. A moment where truth would finally be spoken without fear. All eyes turned toward me. The entire family waited. Some people looked nervous. Others looked guilty. A few looked down, avoiding my gaze completely. It felt like the whole room was holding its breath, waiting for me to explode with anger. They expected me to shout. They expected me to expose Zola in front of everyone. They expected revenge. Even Zola stood still, watching me carefully, as if preparing for the worst. Musa looked at me too, unsure of what I would do next. For a moment, I felt the weight of everything I had gone through. The accusations, the humiliation, the rumors, and the pain. I had every reason to fight back with anger. But when I spoke, my voice was calm. I did not raise my voice. I did not insult anyone. I did not try to destroy anyone in return. Instead, I simply told the truth. I spoke about what I had experienced, what I had seen, and what I had learned. I explained how misunderstandings had grown into lies, and how those lies had hurt people without reason. I did not add hate to my words. I did not try to win. I only made sure the truth was clear. The room stayed completely quiet as I finished speaking. No one interrupted me. No one argued. And when I finally stopped, the silence felt heavier than any argument or shouting could ever be. Because in that moment, everyone understood something powerful. I did not need revenge to prove my truth. And that made my words stronger than anything else that had been said that night. After Ebony finished speaking, the room stayed quiet for a long time. No one had anything left to say. The truth had already been spoken, and there was nothing more to argue against. Slowly, people began to stand up from the table. One by one, guests started, leaving the dinner without looking back. But the atmosphere was completely different now. No one was standing with Zola anymore. The relatives who once supported her now avoided her eyes. The friends who used to agree with her stayed silent and walked away. Even the people who had followed her lead during the accusations no longer wanted to be connected to her. It was as if everyone suddenly understood what had really happened, and they no longer wanted to be part of it. Zola remained sitting for a while, but she was no longer in control of anything. The confidence she had shown earlier in the evening was gone. The room that once felt like her stage now felt empty and cold. One by one, the people she relied on disappeared from her side. Outside, the night had grown quiet. Weeks passed after that dinner. Slowly, the family began to repair what had been broken. Conversations that had stopped for years started again. Misunderstandings were cleared, not with anger, but with honesty. People began to realize how easily lies had spread, and how deeply they had believed them without questioning. Musa and Ebony also began rebuilding their lives. This time, there was no pressure from the family, no false stories, and no hidden doubts between them. Their relationship became stronger because it was finally based on truth and understanding. Ebony often remembered something her grandmother used to say, that people could try to damage your name, spread rumors, and turn others against you. For a while, it might even feel like they succeeded. But truth never stays hidden forever. It always finds its way out in the end, no matter how long it takes. One evening, Ebony walked out of the family estate holding Musa's hand. They moved forward together, leaving the past behind them. From an upstairs window, Zola watched silently. The house around her felt empty. The people she once controlled were gone. And in that moment, she finally understood the cost of everything she had done. She had not lost an argument. She had lost everyone she thought she could control.